U.S. President Donald Trump unlawfully ordered National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon. A federal judge ruled in a legal setback to the administration's use of the military in American cities. The U.S. District Court Judge Karin Immergut, a Trump appointee, delivered her final order in the case on Friday. She found that protests near Portland's Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility were predominantly peaceful, with only isolated and sporadic instances of relatively low-level violence. This court arrives at the necessary conclusion that there was neither a rebellion or danger of a rebellion, nor was the president unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States in Oregon when he ordered the federalization and deployment of the National Guard, U.S. District Judge Karin J. Immergut, who was appointed by President Donald Trump in his first term, wrote in her ruling. The occasional interference to federal officers has been minimal, and there is no evidence that these small-scale protests have significantly impeded the execution of any immigration laws, she said in her 106-page opinion and order. Earlier this week, Immergut barred Trump's administration from deploying the National Guard to Portland until at least Friday, saying she found no credible evidence that protests in the city had grown out of control before the president federalized the troops earlier this fall. This is the latest development in weeks of legal back and forth in Portland, Chicago, and other U.S. cities as the Trump administration has moved to federalize and deploy the National Guard in city streets to quell protests. The ICE facility in southwest Portland has been the site of ongoing protests since June, when Portland police declared it a riot. The city of Portland and the state of Oregon sued the Trump administration in September after the president announced he had directed the Department of Defense to federalize and deploy the Oregon National Guard. The Trump administration is likely to appeal Friday's ruling, and the case could ultimately reach the U.S. Supreme Court.
You know that my background is in business, that I've served in Congress, that I've been a governor, and that I am the Department of Homeland Security Secretary. And most people, when they first talked to me about that job, or even when they first heard my name, that President Trump would nominate me for that position, said, "How did that happen? Why would you want to do that job?" And I often tell them the story of when President Trump called me after he won the election. He gave me a phone call and he said, "Christy, I heard that you might be interested in being in my cabinet and helping me when I get to the White House. What position would you be interested in?" He said, "I thought some people said maybe agriculture or interior. What were you thinking?" And I said, "Sir, I would be interested in being your Homeland Security Secretary." And he said, "Why would you want to do that job?" And of course, he was picturing Mayorkas and how he was doing that job. And I said, "Sir, I want to do that job because it is your number one priority. You have talked across this country and told people you are going to secure the border, that you are going to deport people who are here illegally, that you are going to enforce our laws, and you're going to have somebody who's actually tough enough to do it. Somebody who recognizes that this is a big job, that it's not going to just take 2, 3, 6 months, that it is going to take a period of time, and it will be something that we will have to be steadfast in and to make sure that we're enforcing our laws and that they apply equally to everyone." He gave me the opportunity to do the job and trusted me, and I am so grateful that he did. The Department of Homeland Security was created after 9/11. It was created after that terrible terrorist attack, and the mission of the department is to secure the homeland with integrity and with honor. And so we have jurisdiction over every single person that lives in this country, would leave this country or come in, either legally or illegally, when we bring them into justice and take them out. We also have jurisdiction over every product or good that is in this country, would be shipped in or exported as well. And we have jurisdiction over the internet, whatever is said or what is sold or done or communicated. So as you can see, the authorities of the department are large. There are 23 different agencies that were combined under the department back when it was created. And they're very diverse. Because we talk almost every day about the border, that we are responsible for CBP and for ICE, which is our enforcement operation on the interior of the country. But we also have jurisdiction over the Secret Service. They are under our umbrella. We have FEMA in the department. FEMA is responsible not just for disasters, which you have experienced in this state, but also for the continuation of government. If the worst of the worst happens in this country and we're so devastated that our government seems unsustainable, it would be the agency of FEMA that's responsible to make sure that our government would continue and function and serve the people. We also have intelligence agencies in the department. INA helps collect data and partners with the CIA, FBI, and other agencies to make sure that we're staying in front of terrorist attacks and threats that we have across the world. We have weapons of mass destruction that we are responsible for and make sure are deployed appropriately and that we're wisely using the resources that we have in conjunction with the military. We train all the federal law enforcement officers in the country, whatever agency they would happen to go to, they would train under the department and then deployed to their different tasks and responsibilities that they would have. And then we also have the National Operations Center, which is the center that notifies the rest of government of things in the world that we need to be aware of. I tell people many times what I get is about 50 to 100 bad emails a day. If there is a earthquake in Argentina, I'm notified and then decide who to make sure other people in the government and White House know what is going on. If there's a terrorist attack in India, I am notified first and make sure that we handle it appropriately. If there's something that happens in one of our cities, a school shooting or a car bombing, something that would happen, it is the Department of Homeland Security that makes sure we take action to notify and respond appropriately to all of those threats. We also have TSA under the Department of Homeland Security. You can keep your shoes on now. I hope you're happy about that as well. But making sure that we are running appropriate and thorough security checks at our airports as people travel is incredibly important to our country, not just for those who would be vacationing, but many of those for business and how it keeps our economy thriving going forward as well. All of those different agencies work together to make sure that we are doing what we can to defend the homeland and get up every single day and focus on the priorities of this country. I'm so impressed with the individuals that serve in this department that are thrilled that under President Trump's leadership, they get to do their job again, that they get the chance to go out every single day and to enforce the law and treat people fairly under the law and make sure that America once again stands for integrity and for truth. In fact, you saw our recruitment campaign that we had with ICE, that we were recruiting 10,000 new agents to work with ICE, and we have today crossed over 200,000 applications for those 10,000 new jobs that would be created. People want to be a part of going out there and making their communities safer. And I remind people all the time, these agents live in these communities, and they want to be out there getting these dangerous criminals out of these streets and out of these schools and communities and housing areas where their kids and their family members live. We also have seen, though, a lot of rhetoric and attacks from Democrats, from the left, from people who don't love America as well, that have gone after them. 1,000% increase in attacks against our ICE officers. We've seen an 8,000% increase in death threats against these ICE officers. So one thing I want to ask you to do tonight is if you would go out and encourage a law enforcement officer every chance you get, that would absolutely mean the world to them as they're out there doing and enforcing the law and following through on their oath that they have. Just thank them. Cross the street, shake their hands. Tell their families thank you. If you know one that is in your neighborhood or someone that goes to your church that's in law enforcement or an ICE officer, cook them a meal and thank them for the sacrifice. What we see many times that they take for these kind of attacks are their lies and untruths, and they continue to stand up and show up and do their jobs. What we do as Republicans, what we do as Americans, is we support individuals who take an oath and stand for justice and make sure that we know that they are appreciated and that we're grateful and that we say thank you. You know, many times we don't get the opportunity in life to choose our enemy, but we can choose the fight. We can choose the fight and to show up for the fight, and when we don't choose the fight, that's when Americans end up dead. So we need to pick the right fight that matters, and that's what these individuals are doing each and every day. That's what President Trump is doing every day. Thousands and thousands of people will not be victimized because he's getting these terrorists and these criminals off of our streets. Millions of Americans have already been saved because of the drugs that he has stopped from coming into our country. Under the Department of Homeland Security, we also have the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard has been absolutely imperative to getting our drug interdictions off of our maritime seas. As we've seen the border be enforced on the land, the cartels have moved to the waters, and the Coast Guard has stopped them in our waters and interdicted historical amounts of cocaine and drugs and heroin, fentanyl, and brought individuals to justice that were out there trafficking this poison to kill our kids. We're so grateful for them. Somehow, in a world that's filled with turmoil and with anger, fighting, people have forgotten many times the value of different leaders that show up every day, and our law enforcement are the perfect examples of it, that are positive, that they set an agenda, that they're willing to help others rise up and to be successful as well. And I want to encourage each of you tonight that that's what being a Republican is. Being a Republican is being someone who sets the example, that knows which fight to pick, and make sure that we treat everybody the same, fairly, that we lift people up, that we ensure that everyone has the chance to succeed, and that we aren't placing one person above another. We're not picking favorites. What we're doing is we're picking freedom. We don't tell people what they have to do. We just remind them of the freedoms that they were gifted when they came into this country. Now, many different leaders have different styles. They have different tactics that they use, different words, different actions, but the basics are always going to be the same. And as you leave this institution and as you're trained, I'm sure that you will leave with the values that are so important to how this country needs to be sustained into the future. First of all, each of us should leave wanting to set an example, be someone that people can look to. And then good leaders cast a vision for where we're going. I'm so grateful for a president that recognizes that we needed a hope and inspiration for what America could be again. And then he's delivering it and taking us there. Now, good leaders work longer hours, longer than anybody else. And I will tell you, this president that we have never sleeps. The man works day and night, and my phone has rang at all hours of the day with him giving me more and more to do. It could be 2 in the morning and he would call and say, "Christy, what are you doing?" "Sir, I was sleeping." "I really need you to make sure that you're addressing what's going on out in Portland or addressing what's going on in San Francisco," and giving us, he's constantly thinking about what more he can do to make this country safer and better and more successful for the people that live here. But good leaders also encourage other people. They're positive. They find positive traits in them and focus on them and give them the pep talk and the hope and the inspiration they need to continue to go out and to serve. President Trump embodies these elements every single day for people. I wish you had the chance to sit in a room and listen to him talk about how he consistently is setting an example for how you interact with people, that he consistently casts a vision for our country. He works harder than anybody else, and then he encourages us all to do better going forward.